Here is a true story about a river in the desert. Long ago, this river gave life to one of the greatest civilizations in all of history. Its people built giant pyramids that still stand today. The people called their land Egypt. Their story lasted for more than 3,000 years. That is longer than almost any country you know. So let us travel back in time and see how it all began. Egypt sits in a hot, dry desert. Almost no rain falls there. Yet through the middle runs a great river. It is called the Nile. Without this river, there would be no Egypt at all. Every year, the Nile flooded. The water covered the land for weeks. When it went away, it left rich black mud behind. In this soft mud, farmers could grow plenty of food for everyone. So the people loved the river deeply. They called their home the Black Land because of the dark, rich soil. All around lay the Red Land, the empty desert where almost nothing could ever live. Thousands of years ago, small villages grew along the Nile. People fished, farmed, and raised animals. Slowly, these villages joined together. In time, there were two kingdoms, one in the north and one in the south. The land in the south was called Upper Egypt. The land in the north, near the sea, was called Lower Egypt. For many years, these two kingdoms were separate. Each had its own king and crown. Then, around 3,100 years before Christ, something huge happened. A strong king from the south marched north. His name was Narmer. He joined the two lands into one great kingdom. Narmer became the first pharaoh of a united Egypt. Pharaoh was the special word for the king. He wore a double crown, white and red, to show that he ruled both the north and the south. The pharaoh was the most powerful person in all of Egypt. The people believed he was not just a king. They believed he was a living God on earth. Everyone had to obey him completely. The pharaoh had a very important job. He had to keep order and balance in the land. The people called this idea Ma'at. As long as the pharaoh ruled well, they believed the world stayed safe. The Egyptians also invented a kind of writing. We call it hieroglyphs. Instead of letters, they used tiny pictures. A bird, an eye, or a wave could each stand for a sound or an idea. Writing was hard to learn. Only a few people could do it. These men were called scribes. They wrote on paper made from a river plant called papyrus. Scribes were respected all across Egypt. Now Egypt grew rich and strong. This time is called the Old Kingdom. The pharaohs wanted great tombs to keep their bodies safe forever, so they began to build in stone, bigger than ever before. The first great stone tomb was built for a pharaoh named Djoser. A clever man named Imhotep designed it. He piled 6 huge stone squares on top of each other. We now call it the Step Pyramid. This was only the beginning. The pharaohs wanted tombs that were even taller and grander. They dreamed of smooth, pointed pyramids that reached up toward the sun, and soon they built exactly that. The most famous of all is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was built for a pharaoh named Khufu about 2,500 years before Christ. It is a true wonder of the world. The Great Pyramid was made of over 2 million blocks of stone. Some blocks weighed more than an elephant. Workers pulled them into place by hand. There were no machines, only ropes, ramps, and muscle. When it was finished, the pyramid stood about 146 meters high. For almost 4,000 years, it was the tallest building in the whole world. Nothing else even came close. Near the pyramids stands another wonder. It is a giant statue with the body of a lion and the head of a king. We call it the Great Sphinx. It has guarded the desert for ages. Who built these pyramids? For a long time, people said slaves did. But now, we think most builders were paid Egyptian workers. They lived in a town nearby and ate bread, fish, and fresh vegetables. The Egyptians believed in many gods. There were gods for the sun, the sky, the river, and much more. The great sun god was called Ra. He sailed across the sky in a golden boat each day. One famous god was Osiris, the king of the dead. His wife was the goddess Isis. Another god, Anubis, had the head of a jackal, a wild dog. He watched over the dead in their tombs. The Egyptians believed in a life after death. They thought the soul lived on when the body died. But for this to happen, the body had to be kept safe. So they learned to protect it carefully. This is why they made mummies. They dried the body and wrapped it in long strips of cloth. Then they placed it in a special coffin. This way, they hoped, the person would live on forever. Rich Egyptians were buried with food, gold, and treasure. They wanted these things in the afterlife. Priests said magic spells to keep them safe. These spells were written in a famous text, the Book of the Dead. After many years, the old kingdom grew weak. The pharaohs lost their power. For a while there was no strong king, and the land fell into trouble. Different leaders fought each other for control, but Egypt did not disappear. In time, a new strong pharaoh brought the land back together. This new age is called the Middle Kingdom. Once again, Egypt was united, calm, and rich. During the Middle Kingdom, art and writing grew beautiful. People wrote poems and wonderful stories. Trade grew too. Egyptian boats sailed far away to bring back gold, wood, and rare treasures from distant lands. Then trouble came again. Foreign people from the east, called the Hyksos, moved into Egypt. They brought horses and fast war chariots, which the Egyptians had never seen. Soon they ruled the north of the land. The Egyptians did not forget. They learned to use horses and chariots too. At last, strong southern princes rose up and drove the Hyksos out. Egypt was free and united once more. Now began the greatest age of all. We call it the New Kingdom. Egypt was no longer just a country by the river. It became a mighty empire, feared and respected across the ancient world. The pharaohs now led huge armies. They marched far into other lands and won many battles. Gold and treasure flowed into Egypt. The pharaohs built grand temples to thank their gods for these great victories. One of the most surprising rulers was a woman. Her name was Hatshepsut. In those days, pharaohs were almost always men. But Hatshepsut was clever and strong, and she took the throne for herself. Hatshepsut ruled Egypt for about 20 years. She was one of the most successful pharaohs of all. She sent traders to far lands and built beautiful temples. Under her, Egypt was peaceful and very wealthy. The New Kingdom pharaohs no longer built pyramids. Instead, they cut secret tombs deep into the rock of a hidden valley. Today we call it the Valley of the Kings. They hoped robbers would never find them. Then came a pharaoh who changed everything. His name was Akhenaten. He did something no one had done before. He told the people to stop praying to the many gods and to worship only one. That one god was the sun disk, called the Aten. Akhenaten built a brand new city for this god. His beautiful wife was Queen Nefertiti. Her famous face is still admired all around the world today. But most people did not like this big change. They loved their old gods. When Akhenaten died, Egypt soon went back to the old ways. His new city was left empty and forgotten in the sand. After Akhenaten came a young boy. His name was Tutankhamun. He became pharaoh when he was only about 9 years old. He brought back the old gods that the people loved so very much. Tutankhamun did not rule for long. He died when he was still very young, only about 18. He was a minor king in his own time. For thousands of years, the world forgot his name. Then, in the year 1922, everything changed. A British man named Howard Carter searched the Valley of the Kings. After years of digging, he found a hidden step and then a sealed door. Behind the door lay Tutankhamun's tomb, almost untouched. Inside was a treasure beyond belief: golden beds, statues, and a famous mask of solid gold. The whole world was amazed by the young boy king. The greatest builder of the new kingdom was Ramesses II. People often call him Ramesses the Great. He ruled Egypt for an amazing 66 years, longer than almost any pharaoh before him. Ramesses fought a huge battle at a place called Kadesh. He faced a strong enemy, the Hittites, in a giant fight of chariots. Later, the two sides made one of the first peace treaties in history. Ramesses covered Egypt with statues and temples of himself. His greatest work was at Abu Simbel. There, 4 giant statues of the pharaoh were carved straight into a tall cliff of solid rock. Life in Egypt was not only about kings and gods. Most people were simple farmers. They worked hard in the fields beside the Nile. They grew wheat to make bread and barley to make beer. Egyptian families loved their children and their pets. They kept cats, which they thought was special and holy. They played music, told stories, and enjoyed festivals. Ordinary life went on year after year. The Egyptians were also fine doctors for their time. They knew how to set broken bones and treat many wounds. They wrote their medical knowledge down on papyrus so others could learn it after them, but no empire lasts forever. Slowly, after Ramesses, Egypt began to grow weaker. The pharaohs were not as strong. Enemies grew bolder. Bit by bit, Egypt started to lose its great power. Foreign armies began to invade the land. First came peoples from the sea. Later, mighty empires attacked. The Assyrians came, and then the Persians. Egypt was conquered again and again by powerful outsiders. Then, in the year 332 before Christ, a young Greek leader arrived. His name was Alexander the Great. He took Egypt without a real fight, and the people welcomed him as a friend. Alexander founded a great new city on the coast. He named it Alexandria, after himself. It became one of the largest and richest cities in the whole ancient world, full of ships, trade, and learning. In Alexandria stood a famous library. Scholars came from far away to read its many scrolls. Nearby stood a giant lighthouse, a wonder of the world, guiding ships safely into the busy harbor. After Alexander died, one of his generals took Egypt for himself. His family, the Ptolemies, ruled the land for almost 300 years. They were Greek kings, but they ruled in the old Egyptian way. The last of this family was a famous queen. Her name was Cleopatra. She was clever, brave, and spoke many languages. She wanted, more than anything, to keep Egypt free and strong. But a new power now ruled the world: Rome. Cleopatra knew Egypt could not fight Rome alone, so she made friends with 2 powerful Roman leaders, first Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony. For a while, her plan seemed to work, but in the end, Rome was simply too strong. Cleopatra and Mark Antony lost a great war against another Roman leader named Octavian. In the year 30 before Christ, Cleopatra died. The story goes that she let a poisonous snake bite her. With her death, the long line of Egyptian pharaohs finally came to an end. Egypt now became part of the Roman Empire. After 3,000 years, the land of the pharaohs was ruled by foreigners. The temples slowly emptied. The old gods were at last no longer worshipped. As the years passed, people forgot how to read hieroglyphs. The little pictures on the walls became a mystery. No one alive could understand them. The voice of ancient Egypt fell completely silent. Then, much later, something wonderful was found. In the year 1799, soldiers in Egypt dug up a large black stone. On it, the same message was written 3 times in 3 different scripts. One of those scripts was Greek, which people could still read. Another was the old hieroglyphs. We call this the Rosetta stone. It was the key that could unlock the lost language of Egypt. A brilliant French scholar named Champollion studied the stone for years. At last, in the year 1822, he cracked the code. For the first time in centuries, people could read hieroglyphs again. Suddenly, the walls of Egypt could speak once more. Their stories, their kings, and their prayers came back to life. A whole lost world opened up again for everyone to explore and understand. Today, people from all over the world travel to Egypt. They stand before the great pyramids and gaze up in wonder. They visit the temples and tombs, still filled with color after thousands of years. The treasures of the pharaohs are kept in grand museums. Millions of people come to see the golden mask of Tutankhamun. They look into the calm face of a boy who died so very long ago. Ancient Egypt still teaches us so much. It shows how clever people can be with simple tools. It shows how much humans have always wondered about life, about death, and about the world beyond. So think about it for a moment. A thin green river in a vast desert became one of the greatest civilizations of all time. It rose, it shone, and its wonders still amaze us today. From small mud villages grew mighty pharaohs, giant pyramids, and golden treasure. For 3,000 years, Egypt stood proudly by the Nile, and even now, its story lives on all around the world. Thank you so much for listening to this story of ancient Egypt. If it helped your English, please subscribe here and give this video a like. A brand new story is coming in just a few days. And keep practicing right now while it is fresh. Tap the video on the screen to watch the next story or open the playlist to keep listening. Well done today, and see you very soon.